Students, we are back with another lesson. In this lesson, we'll discuss astronomical telescope. Your astronomical telescope is a refracting telescope which is used to see heavenly bodies like your stars, planets, galaxies, and etc. Fine. So in this lesson, we will understand how your astronomical telescope works, and we will try to derive the magnifying power of this astronomical telescope. So with the help of the ray diagram, we will explain the working of an astronomical telescope when the final image is formed at the least distance of distinct vision. Just like your compound microscope, we will categorize this astronomical telescope in two categories. The first category will be when the final image is formed at least distance of distinct vision. So first, let us study for this condition. Now, before we dive into this condition, let us talk about the astronomical telescope in general. Your astronomical telescope generally consists of two converging lenses. By converging lens, I'll say convex lens. The first lens is your objective. This objective has a large focal length and it has a large aperture. That means the focal length of the objective is large, and the aperture, by aperture I mean the thickness. Fine. So in this case, let us denote this one as f suffix o. Okay, so this f is the focal length and o stands for your objective. Fine. Similarly, it consists of a eyepiece. Your eyepiece is also a convex lens, but the eyepiece has a short focal length and it has small aperture. That means it has smaller thickness as compared to your objective. Fine. So let us represent the focal length of the eyepiece as f suffix e. Fine. Now note that the focal length of the objective is greater than the focal length of the eyepiece. So let me just write this here inside a bracket. So the focal length of objective is greater than the focal length of eyepiece. Fine. Now we will explain the working of the astronomical telescope using the ray diagram. Okay, so consider a objective. This convex lens is your objective. Let me just write down somewhere here. This lens is your objective. Fine. This objective has a larger aperture and a larger focal length, and the focal length of this objective is denoted by f naught. Fine. So if I have to show, okay, before this, let us consider this distance to be its focal length. Okay, fine, fine. So now consider an object which is placed at infinity. So fine. Consider this is your object. This object A, B is placed at infinity. Okay, fine. Now, consider a ray which start from this object AB which is placed at infinity. Consider a ray which moves parallel to the principal axis. After diffraction, what will happen? It will pass through the focus. Fine. If this point, okay, if this point represents the primary focus or primary focal point, okay, then this distance will be the focal length for the objective. Fine. So let me just draw this with a blue pen. If this is the focus, fine, then this distance will be f suffix o. Fine, this is the focal length of the objective. Now, the ray which starts from the objective moves parallel to the principal axis. After refraction, passes through the focus. Fine, so let me draw this ray first. Fine, so this is your first ray. Now, consider another ray which passes through the center of this objective. If it passes through center, it passes undeviated. Fine. So this is your second ray which passes through the center and it passes undeviated. Now at this point, your objective will form an image of the object AB. Fine. Okay, so let me show this with a green pen. So this is the image which is formed by the objective. And this image we will denote it as B dash and A dash. Fine. Now here we are done with objective. Now we will introduce another convex lens. This convex lens will be your eyepiece. Fine. Now note, we will place the eyepiece in such a manner that your image, okay, this A dash B dash should be formed inside the focal length of the eyepiece. Fine. Fine. Let me place the eyepiece. Now this eyepiece has a shorter focal length as compared to your objective, and it has smaller aperture as compared to your objective. Now note, the arrangement of the eyepiece is such that this image should be formed within the focal length of the eyepiece. Okay. If this point represents the secondary focal or secondary focus of this eyepiece. Okay, so let me just write down eyepiece somewhere here on top. Fine, this is your eyepiece. If this is the secondary focus, then this distance will be known as the focal length for the eyepiece, which is represented by f suffix e. Fine, this is the focal length of the eyepiece. Okay, now this image A dash B dash will act as a virtual object for your eyepiece. Fine. So now again, if this A dash B dash act as an object, again consider a ray which moves parallel to the principal axis. Fine. Now after diffraction, it will pass through the focus. Fine. So this is the first ray. Now consider your second ray. Now this time I'll be using a red pen so that it avoids confusion. Okay. Now consider a red second ray which passes through the center of the eyepiece like this. Fine. Now look, are the rays intersecting anywhere here? No. If they are not intersecting, okay, then what kind of image will the eyepiece form? They will form a virtual image. For virtual image, what we will do? We will extend this rays. Fine. Let us extend this two rays. Fine. So let us extend. Now, if you see, the two rays appears to diverge from this point. So at this point, what will happen? A virtual image will be formed. Fine. So your eyepiece forms the image of the object A dash B dash here. Okay, so this is the image formed by the eyepiece. Now let us name this image as A double dash B double dash. Fine. Okay, so this is the final image which is formed by the eyepiece. Okay, so let us summarize what happened. So a object which was placed at infinity AB, it forms a image A dash B dash using your objective. This image A dash B dash will act as an object for your eyepiece, and this eyepiece forms a final image A double dash B double dash here. Fine. So for the normal human eye, it will appear that this object has produced the image at this point. Fine. So let me just draw what it will. For the normal human eye, it will seem that the object is fine. So for the normal human eye, it will appear that the object is somewhere here. And why is it so? Because the actual object, the actual object which is placed at infinity forms its final image at this point. Fine. Therefore, if you look at your object and your final image, okay, what are the points you can note here? This object forms a inverted image apart apart from being a inverted, okay, it also forms a magnified image. Okay, as you can see, the distant object is very small. Okay, why is it small? Because it is placed at infinity. Okay, when I say infinity means it is placed very far. Okay, not theoretically placed at infinity. Okay, theoretically we can assume anything, but practically it will be like very far. Okay, the distance will be very large. That's why if the object is placed very far from your human eye, then it must appear very small. Fine. Now using your astronomical telescope apparatus, what this one does is that it forms a final image A double dash B dash. This image falls on our human eye. Therefore, we can see this object clearly. Why? Because it is magnified, as the size of the final image is greater than the size of the object. Fine, fine. So in our next session, or in our next part, we will derive the magnifying power of the telescope. Okay, we will derive the magnifying power of the telescope when the final image will be formed at least distance of distinct vision. That means the image form will be at the least distance of distinct vision. That means at a distance of how much? At a distance of 25 centimeter. Fine. So this distance is represented by capital D, and this distance is known as your least distance of distinct vision. Okay, then what we will do, we will try to derive the magnifying power of this astronomical telescope. Fine, the condition is that this final image should be formed at least distance of distinct vision. Okay, so that's it for today's class. Thank you. And if you have any confusion, please don't hesitate to ask. I will re-explain it to you again. So again, thank you.